Hello. Today we are traveling through Canto 8. And at the end of Canto 7, we really didn't talk about this very much, but in the end of Canto 7, Dante and Virgil travel to the next circle from the hoarders and spendthrifts. They travel to the circle of the violent. And here the violent are in this swampy river Styx, and they're in the mud and mess, and they're gnawing and fighting each other. And Dante says they came to a tower. Well, actually, he sorts of backtracks here, and he starts out Canto 8, where I must explain, however, before we finally reach the foot of that high tower, our eyes have been attracted to its summit by two small flames we saw flare up just there. And so far off, the eye could hardly see, another burning torch flashed back a sign. I turned to that vast sea of human knowledge. Of course, that's Virgil. What signal is this? Another flame. What does it answer? And who's doing this? Now, Dante commentators have had a field day trying to understand why Dante sort of backtracks here. And one explanation is that he simply stopped writing for a little bit for whatever reason, and then when he came back, he sort of had a slightly different plan at any rate, and so he's expressing that at this point. In any event, he's asking Virgil what's going on here with all these signals and stuff. But while he's doing that, something else happens. A bowstring never shot an arrow off that cut the thin air any faster than a little boat I saw coming that very second, skimming along the water in our direction with a solitary steersman who was shouting, "Ah! I got you now, you wretched soul!" Pelagius, this time you shout in vain, my lord responded. You have us with you no longer than it takes to cross the muck. As one who learns of some incredible trick just played on him flares up resentfully so, Pelagius there was seething in his anger. My leader calmly stepped into the skiff, and when he was inside, he had me enter. Only then it seemed to carry weight. As soon as my guide and I were in the boat, the ancient prow began to plow the water more deeply now than any time before. Dante, a number of times in the Divine Comedy, in all of the sections, I do believe, shows in little ways that he's still alive, and people sometimes pick up on these clues, and we see now that there's a clue that he's still alive because he has weight. He's not a spirit, and he gets the boat to drop just a little bit into the water through his weight. Pelagius, and here we see a picture, painting by Stradanius of Virgil and Dante crossing with this character Pelagius. Pelagius, the infernal employee who transports Dante and Virgil in his boat across the Styx, circle of the wrathful and sullen, is appropriately known for his own impetuous behavior. In a fit of rage, Pelagius sets fire to the temple of Apollo because the god had raped his daughter. Apollo promptly slew him. Pelagius, whose own father was Mars, the god of war, appears in Virgil's underworld as an admonition against showing contempt for the gods. Megaria, one of the Furies, tortures a famished and irritable Pelagius in Statius's Thebaid. Well, I don't know. Of course, he's portrayed here as a very angry person or being or whatever you want to say. He's angry. He's upset that he can't prey upon Dante and Virgil. But I have to say that he does seem to have some reason for this. I mean, after all, the gods are the Romans and the Greeks were pretty ridiculous in what they did to humans. In any event, the fifth circle, and it's the final circle, upper hell, is the circle for the wrathful and the slothful. The sinners here are in the swampy river Styx. The wrathful's punishment is that they forever have to hit, bite, scratch, and fight each other above the surface of the river. The slothful lie underneath the water and cannot rise because they're too lazy in life. Well, they're below the water for that deed or slothful, but they're showing a different type of anger, really. They're showing an anger that's sullen and kept in. And we all know people like that. They're not going to scream and yell at you. They're just going to maybe give you a dirty look and just hold in that anger and just not express it at all. But it's there, it's eating at them. And thus those people are below the swamp of Styx, or the river, and above them are the actively wrathful, hitting, biting, attacking each other for all eternity, which is pretty much how they acted in their life on earth. And this is, as this slide says, the final circle of upper hell. Upper hell are sins that are basically weaknesses of will. You're given in to some sort of emotion or desire, and thus it's a defect of will. Once we get to this, we'll get into the lower hell area. And in that area, the will is hardened and intentionally put towards evil. And as we go down into lower hell, we'll meet worse and worse sinners that are more and more bent towards evil. And here we see a cartoon of these guys in this circle doing what they're doing. Now we'll continue on with the canto. And as we sailed the course of this dead channel, before me rose up a slimy shape that said, "Who are you who come before your time?" And I spoke back, "Though I come, I do not stay. But who are you in all your ugliness?" "You see that I am one who weeps," he answered. Then I said to him, "May you weep and wail, stuck here in this place forever, you damned soul. For filthy as you are, I recognize you." With that, he stretched both hands out towards the boat. But on his guard, my teacher pushed him back. "Away, get down with the other curs." Then he put his arms around my neck, kissed my face, and said, "Indignant soul, blessed is she in whose womb you were conceived." For the first time, he sees an image of the damned soul, sin as it is, vile, degraded, and dangerous. He accepts judgment and places himself on God's side. It's the first stirring of the birth of God within the soul, and Virgil accordingly hails it with words that are used of Christ himself. And you look back and you see that. Let's look back. Looks like I can't look back. Well, never mind. I've learned something about this YouTube recording device. I can't go back on the slides. Well, who knew? Anyhow, if you recall just that what Virgil said of Dante, blessed is blessed is the womb in which you were conceived. And that is an echo of what Elizabeth said to Mary. Now, further on, this is from Dorothy Sayers. We go further, we can see this comment from Helen Luke in her book Dark Wood to White Rose. Without this acceptance of judgment, a man may not safely enter Dis at all. And remember what Dis is. This is the lower hell, the city of lower hell. But when we come face to face with a dark side reality and look on evil itself, there's no room at all for any easy tolerance or for a cold intellectual acceptance of the philosophical meaning of these things. And this is something to ponder. Now we're going to go on. And by the way, this man's is not named for a while, but his name is Filippo Argenti. In the world, this man was filled with arrogance, and nothing good about him decks his memory. For this, his shade is filled with fury here. Many in life esteem themselves great men, who then will wallow here like pigs in the mud, leaving behind them their repulsive fame. Master, it certainly would make me happy to see him dunk deeper in the slough just once before we leave this lake. It truly would. He said to me, before the other shower comes into sight, you will be satisfied. A wish like that is worthy of fulfillment. Soon afterwards, I saw the wretch so mangled by a gang of muddy souls that to this day I thank my Lord and praise him for the sight. Get Filippo Argenti, they all cried. And at those shouts, the Florentine, gone mad, turned on himself and bit his body fiercely. We left him there. I'll say no more about him. A wailing noise began to pound my ears and made me strain my eyes to see ahead. And Hollander mentions what the original Italian seems to imply. This original Italian implies people who suddenly and for any reason at all lose their tempers. Well, once again, that certainly rings true. We all know people like that, do we not? People who just suddenly lose control of themselves, and unpredictable people. And also consider this part about the guy in verse 63. He gnaws just as a proud man will do, unable to avenge the injury done him by someone more powerful. And this sort of implies in a bit that anger is self-destructive. It's destructive of yourself. And certainly, as we've all been angry, we know that it sort of eats us inside until we dispose of the anger, particularly if the object of our anger is not someone that we can deal with. And Thursday morning, someone mentioned also, consider the fact that there are people, particularly adolescents, who will just cut themselves, slice themselves with linear strokes on their arms, and this also is kind of a sign sometimes of self rage against self. And here's the question you have to ask yourself, and each person who's listening to this needs to ask himself: is Dante's anger at Filippo Argenti a good thing? Does Virgil approve of Dante the Pilgrim's lack of pity? All right, let's consider some things that help us to look at Dante and his relationship with Filippo Argenti. Dante is different from the way he was when he talked to Francesca de Rimini. He's beginning to realize that these souls deserve to be punished. Apparently, Dante is acting correctly when he wishes that Filippo Argenti be punished. After all, God put Filippo Argenti in the Inferno, and God does not make mistakes. Since Filippo Argenti is here in the Inferno, he deserves to be here, and he deserves to be punished severely. Dante is becoming capable of righteous indignation. Righteous indignation, anger exercised the right way against the right object, is a good thing. John Ciardi regards righteous indignation as being the golden mean between extremes. Wrath is excessive anger. Sullenness is bottled up anger. And righteous indignation is anger exercised the right way against the right object. John Ciardi uses Jesus Christ chasing the money changers out of the temple as an example of righteous indignation. Virgil's strong endorsement of the pilgrim's punitive behavior towards Filippo Argenti includes his praising the pilgrim for his disdain addressing Dante as indignant soul. This approbation and the association of disdain with the angel who arrive in Infernal 9, and of whom Dante writes, "How full of high disdain he seemed to me," and we'll see him in next canto, obviously, underscores that the pilgrim is here performing righteous anger. He's performing what will be called, in the language of Purgatorio 8, that forthright zeal which, in measured fashion, flames within the heart. So, Dante is not suggesting that we be unemotional, just flat, and not ever be moved by anything, but we should be moved by righteous anger, anger at the right object, something that's evil and wrong, and in the right amount. The explanation for that lies in Dante's own turbulent biography. Prominent in the ferocious power struggles of medieval Florence, he at various points took up arms, held high office, was double-crossed by Pope Boniface VIII, and subsequently died in exile. Writing the Divine Comedy, the author deals ruthlessly with those who engineered and profited from the poet's banishment. Boniface's card is marked in Canto 19 of the Inferno. Filippo Argenti, a political rival, is placed in the fifth circle of hell reserved for the wrathful, where he bites lumps out of himself for all eternity. And this, by the way, is a commentary from The Guardian, which is a British newspaper. And sure enough, Filippo Argenti was a political rival. But as Dante is guided by Virgil towards heaven, he learns how politics should be done differently on earth. The Roman poet embodies the four cardinal virtues of the ancient world: prudence, courage, justice, and moderation. In Paradiso, St. Thomas Aquinas emphasizes the need for moral and intellectual humility. Fallible human beings, he tells Dante, should never become too sure of themselves. In Canto 18 of Paradiso, we learn that the souls of the just rulers dwell in the temperate sphere of Jupiter, well away from the extremes of fiery Mars and cold Saturn. St. Thomas acidly sums up heaven's view of opinionated blowhards at the end of Canto 13. Let not every Bertha and Martin think, because they see one a thief, another respectable, that they see how they are in the eyes of God. One may rise, the other one fall. In our own age of divisive culture wars, this celestial wisdom, dutifully written down and delivered to the world by Dante, could be very usefully deployed. In recent years, hectoring Berthas and Martins have dominated far too much of the political stage. If we could channel some of the specific spirit of Dante's Paradiso into our everyday lives, it would be a fitting anniversary tribute to Europe's greatest poet. Don't forget the anniversary is what? It's 700th anniversary of his death. And also, as I've emphasized before, this points out that as we go through Inferno, we get one look at everything, from politics to life in general. And then Purgatorio, we get a more refined one, and then we get the final answer in Paradiso. So if you stop in Inferno and never read the other two sections of the Divine Comedy, you're getting a incomplete view. Now we'll continue on with the canto. And now, my son, the gentle teacher said, coming closer to is the city we call Dis, with its great walls and its fierce citizens. And I, master, already I can see the clear glow of its mosques above the valley, burning bright red, as though just forged and left to smolder. And he to me, eternal fire burns within, giving off the reddish glow you see diffuse through this lower hell. And then, at last, we entered those deep moats that circled all of this unhappy city, whose walls, it seemed to me, were made of iron. And iron is symbolic of will. The sins from now on will not be those of indulgence. Remember, I said earlier in this talk that the sins of upper hell are sins of indulgence. a weakened will gives in to things. Here, the will is going to get stronger and stronger, but unfortunately, as it gets stronger and stronger, stronger towards evil. I saw more than 1,000 fiendish angels perching above the gates in rage, screaming, "Who is this one approaching? Who without death dares walk into the kingdom of the dead?" And my wise teacher made some kind of signal, announcing he would speak to them in secret. They managed to suppress their great resentment and say, "You come, but he must go. Who thought to walk so boldly through this realm?" And here they are, or a painting, a representation. And someone in the Thursday class said they reminded her of the Wizard of Oz, the little flying monkeys, but I don't know. I guess could, but they're not flying monkeys. They're flying really bad things, and they're not after Dorothy and Toto. They're after Dante, Virgil, and actually any just soul they can get their talons on. And here we go. There's another picture by Giovanni Stradano of, here's Virgil talking to the lot of them in the gates of Dis, and you see Dante over here a little bit away from it, just sort of wondering what's going to happen. It's a good question. "Let him retrace his foolish way alone. Just let him try. And you who led him here to this dark land, you stay right where you are." And now, my reader, consider how I felt when those foreboding words came to my ears. I thought I would never see our world again. Oh, my dear guide, who more than 7 times restored my confidence and rescued me from the many dangers that blocked my going on, don't leave me, please. I cried in my distress. And if the journey onward is denied us, let us turn our footsteps back together quickly. Then that Lord who had brought me all this way said, "Do not fear. The journey we are making, none can prevent. Such power did decree it. I wait here for me and feed your weary spirit with comfort and good hope. You can be sure I will not leave you in this underworld." With that, he walks away. He leaves me here, that gentle father, and I stay doubting and battling with my thoughts of yes, but no. And here's a picture you can see. Here's Dante in the foreground, sitting here kind of a little worried, where here's Virgil with a whole bunch of really nasty spirits hanging around him, not looking good. I could not hear what he proposed to them, but they did not remain with him for long. I saw them race each other back for home. Our adversary slammed the heavy gates in my Lord's face, and he stood there outside, then turned towards me and walked back very slowly, with eyes downcast, all self-assurance now erased from his forehead, sighing. "Who are these to forbid my entrance to the halls of grief?" He spoke to me. "You need not be disturbed by my vexation, for I shall win this contest, no matter how they plot to keep us out." This insolence of theirs is nothing new. They used it once at a less secret gate, which is and will be forever unlocked. You saw the deadly words inscribed above it, and now already past it and descending across the circles down the slope alone comes one by whom the city will be opened. And naturally, as you probably already know, the less secret gate is the gate to the Inferno that we saw in Canto 3. When Dante and Virgil disembark in front of the gates of Dis, Virgil, for the first time, deals with infernal guardians whom he cannot dominate. The mythological creatures whom he had encountered thus far were easily subdued. They are from his own pagan world, and his knowledge had been sufficient to allow him to control them. But now, faced with the determined resistance of Christian devils, Virgil, for the first time, shows his limits and is unable to get license to pass. This encounter with the devils is the first such encounter in the poem, and it is an important installment in another, even longer narrative arc. I refer to the unfolding story that tells of Virgil's strengths and limitations in the role of Dante's guide through hell and purgatory, one of the great overarching narratives of the Commedia. In the episode At the Gates of Dis, Dante, poet for the first time, underscores the limitations of Virgil as a guide. This will be a key topic in the next canto, and indeed going forward in the Inferno. And so really, that's where we're left in the end of the 8th canto. It's kind of in suspense. We're sitting in front of the city of Dis. We can't go forward because the devils there will not do it, will not let it happen. The undermining of Virgil's authority is a key plot element of the Inferno. Despite Virgil's very real preeminence in the first canticle, he is not immune from an implicit critique, even within its bounds. In other words, he does not lose his authority all at once. At the beginning of Purgatory, when Cato rebukes him, but in a more subtle fashion, step by step, from the moment he enters the poem. When Virgil arrives, an hourglass is set, and the grains of sand fall one by one until, in Purgatory 30, the glass is empty. The encounters with the devil at the gates of Dis in Inferno 8 is thus a first installment in Dante poet's construction of a plot designed to undermine Virgil's authority and demonstrate his fallibility. The writer of the Commedia undermines the authority of the guide whom he chose, while simultaneously making sure that the pilgrim's love for his guide grows stronger and more evident. Now, that's the end of Canto 8, and we'll be picking up the story, of course, next week, where we are before the gates of Dis. But meanwhile, I wanted to show you a example, one of my periodic examples of the penetration of Dante and the Divine Comedy into our present culture. And here's one I bet you didn't expect, and this is, of all things, Walt Disney did Mickey's Inferno, and I was just kind of surprised about that. But I'll let you read all this when you look at it on YouTube. But basically, we have Goofy and Mickey are doing a play where they're actually doing a performance of Divine Comedy, of all things, and here they are. Now, everybody's just loving it, except these two guys, Peg Leg Pete and his sinister, not just a bad accomplice, but a sinister accomplice, Morty the Mesmerist. So basically, this guy is in the pay of Peg Leg here, and he's going to hypnotize Mickey and Goofy to think that they really are Dante and Virgil, and Goofy is Virgil. I just don't know. Anyway, so here they are. They're mesmerized. They think they still are that, and Mickey thinks that Minnie Mouse is Beatrice. Well, why not? Huh? And this is just an example. They go through the Inferno and they meet various folks. This is a circle of the gluttonous. See, there's Cerberus And sure enough, these little ducks, Huey, Dewey, Louie, are even in here somehow. But in any event, that's what's happening. And then we come to the end where Virgil shows, Dante, the poet, not Dante the Pilgrim, but Dante the poet shows up and says, "What the heck are you doing with this? Making fun of my poem?" And Mickey says, "Hey, really, look, I'm creating an audience for you. All these little kids are going to read this comic. They're going to be really up for Dante's Inferno." And Dante says, "Well, all right, but maybe." But then he suggests go pick on Milton or someone. That's probably a good idea, because I don't really think that this is going to create a lot of kids just having a desire for Dante's Divine Comedy. Could be wrong, but the original inspiration of this was a 1940s comic done in Italy under the aegis of Walt Disney, done in Italian. And here's Mickey again as Dante. So there you have it. And we'll see you next time.